It's not just mine, his or her house. This is our house.
Tyrone Lowe.
Hello, everyone. This is Tyrone Lowe. I am the host and producer of my show, The Legends. And today we have a true legend, DJ extraordinaire, producer extraordinaire, Lenny Fontana. Hey, Lenny.
Hey, how are you, my friend?
I'm quite well, man. Good to have you on my show. In fact, you want to know, I played for LWR for like 4 years. I noticed you was playing for a while there, and you're not playing anymore. But let's talk about Lenny. Let's talk about in the beginning. How did you actually get into the craft of DJing?
Well, it started in my cousin's basement. It's got to be, well, in late 70s, I went out as a young kid. I went out to a couple places in Brooklyn, some day parties. And I remember also going to some private parties where they had a DJ, and I was, right away drawn to seeing this 2 turntables and mixer, not really understanding what was going on, but hearing the music and hearing the selections change and the people all happy. And I used to watch, but then it wasn't until I went to my cousin's house, and he was a few years older than me, and he wound up getting a pair of fresh SL 1200 MK2s when they first came out.
When they first, they were quartz locked, right? Yeah, I remember those.
Yeah, the first ones that came out. And I remember he was in the shower, and I was going up to his table where it was, and he says to me, "Stop." He says, "You know how much those things cost?" I says, "I didn't even know." He says, "Let me show you." So he started showing me what he was doing. He used to go see Jelly Bean all the time at the Fun House, and
right,
he was showing me the mixes, and that was it. I was listening to Shep Pettibone and T. Scott and Tony Humphries and all those guys playing, and that was it for me. I had to have turntables, and it started out with a pause button, as everybody did, and then I got to go to reel, and then I was editing, and I was also playing piano at the same time, and classically trained with a piano teacher, and I was doing music, and I didn't realize later that I would be ever using the piano part, musically speaking, to be produced. It was just about the love of the music of DJing. I love to dance, and I wanted to play music, and it just started from there. And I was one of the lucky ones to get the equipment, and I had all my friends at the house. My mom allowed me to have everybody there, and we were always hanging out. So it was kind of cool, because when you got the music, that's where everybody comes to,
Okay.
Everybody comes and hangs out. So, and it started from there.
So what was besides your professional gigs, what was your actual first gig?
My first gig?
Your very first. Because everybody has the first.
Queens, in Middle Village. I was playing at a small club. I got a job with this guy, Big Al. He allowed me to play. Up to that point, I was doing road, kind of like parties, weddings, and things. That's how I was honing my craft. A block party, that was the thing at the time, But he said, I gave him a cassette, and in those days you had to try out, and I tried out, and he loved the way I played, and I stood with him, and I played for a while. And Queens was the first part of it. From there, I went into Manhattan, and I was introduced to party promoter Bear Jones. And Bear Jones, I became what you would call his DJ, because at the end of the day, they didn't know, it wasn't about the DJ at that time. It was, even though it was, but it wasn't. Party promoters had a crowd. They would bring in the people. They would bring their DJ, and I would play. So he put me in the underground.
Okay.
And the underground was my first Richard Long sound system that I was able to play on. And then from there, I went to play at Studio, C54, Palladium, a God, I played so many places. Where Junior played as well. Baseline, which became later 21 Hudson. So I was playing all the New York hotspots at that time in the
And that's
80s.
pretty cool.
Yeah, so I was probably one of the last to get the chance to play on the RLA systems after disco. So,
Okay.
and then, you know, my world changed from there. And the producing, we'll get to that after, but then it went into the production. But that's my New York story.
You know, like of all the DJs that you mentioned, like T. Scott, Larry Levan, Tony Humphries, there's always one that always influenced you the most. So can you tell the viewers who might have been your influence?
I say it exactly. Tony Humphries. Tony Humphries
Okay.
would rock. Yeah, because I catch his Kiss master mixes. And I always told him that his Kiss master mixes, if there was no Tony Humphries playing house music, I don't think house music would have ever gotten to the level it did, because
Right.
he championed 2 nights a week. His show was from 10 o'clock to 2 in the morning, I think it was 10 to 2, 4 hours, Fridays and Saturdays, playing the newest, hottest stuff. And then he would drop disco. I loved it.
Right.
And he would overlay 9, 10 minutes, his set. Another one that inspired me pre to Tony would be Shep. Shep Pettibone with his editing on Kiss, when Kiss first started, Kiss 98.7, Kiss FM New York, he was the master mixer. So he was doing all these special edits, and that was what got me like locked into wanting to be a DJ master mixer, you know, and Tony Humphries. And I used to love hearing, in this mix is mixed by Tony Humphries, Kiss master. I used to love hearing that. I'd be like, wow, that was till I got my chance. Till later on, I became friends with everybody due to,
Right.
you know, house music. But
Were you also a part of the Paradise Garage era?
yes, yes, and I was lucky enough to catch it. Yes,
You
yes.
know,
I was
yeah, go
friends
ahead.
with David Lozada, may he rest in peace. Brought me to the garage.
Okay.
David brought me to the garage, and my life was never the same after that. Some of them, my friends today, I'm still friends with from the garage, that I still
Right.
talk to. But I actually was blessed to become friends with Larry Levan, David DePino, and everybody in the circles. And later on, the dream was for me, as every DJ in New York that ever went through there would love to play the Paradise Garage. So my dream was, I would always dream of this idea that one day I would get to play the garage, which of course never happened. But I kind of did in a way, because when I did the BBC Legends of Dance Floor, the Larry Levan story,
Mm-hmm.
that was my enshrinement to the garage. Like I was able to share something that I owned, and that led me to be part of that in some backdoor way. But it was fun that I was able to get a chance to be part of it in a crazy way.
You know, the music has changed since like from you started, you know. So what would be your impact on the music then to the music currently now?
Oh my God, it's so different. From playing Black Ivory mainline to
Okay.
playing Marshall Jefferson, yeah, and D Train, Keep On, You're the One for Me. I mean, I was playing. My audience was predominantly Puerto Rican and Black. I played
Okay.
at Wild Pitch again. That was another Black and Spanish crowd. All the garage heads. So I was at some of the best crowds to play for in New York. And then working for Bear Jones was more of a yuppie crowd. So I was able to play soft cell and that stuff, more of the white records we call white, you know, which is to the
Right.
white upper class crowd. And then you had, you know, the Puerto Rican Black crowd, like which Kenny Carpenter would have Bonds
Right.
and Mike
Exactly.
Stone's crowd and Charles Jackson's crowd. I was playing to that, and here I am, a smorgasbord of having people that knew how to dance and let you have it and tell
Right.
you you're doing a great job, because they would scream your name or
Mm-hmm.
let you know you would turn them out. And the same time where you're playing soft cell. So I went from playing R&B dance, disco, to new wave, the beginning of house music, playing house all the way through, some electronic stuff, and then now back to disco.
Right.
Wow, turn around. I mean, it's like I started in the end of disco, and I'm back in the beginning of disco and going back into house music again.
You know, house music has changed a lot during the years. Now it's integrated into like Afro soul, things of that nature. So what would be your input on that? Because it's still different from
Oh,
actually
Afro House
playing in the
is great.
70s and the 80s.
Oh yeah, 80s was electronic sounding, very Italian influenced. Klein MBO Dirty Talk would be a record that would have been influenced to
Exactly, yeah.
what that house music would have been. To the 90s was piano house. 2000s was more of your David Guetta, more of that bigger electronic sound, Swedish House Mafia that changed. And then Afro House, because what happened with Afro House is the American side and the UK side went very underground, the music. In Africa, South Africa was starting to make this house music sound, which was similar to what we did in the early part of the 90s, but they gave it their approach. And it just was picked up by the culture, because of our culture in America. The Spanish and Black crowd tend to like that Latin flavor, the African beat sound, and it was a no-brainer. And it happened.
Okay.
It just it translated very well. I'm starting to see now with every genre, even this genre of Afro House is starting to now show us soulful house now, which is your more 10 City, more stuff that I was known for making, those kind of records with the big vocals and the big backgrounds and the gospel oriented stuff that Spen's doing with Basement Boys, and Vega's doing his thing with more of the disco influenced Vega sound. And then you got different producers, and that's where it is now. I think we're starting to see the soulful house returning again, because everyone's asking me on the remix side, hey Lenny, can you give us that sound you did in the 90s? Oh yeah, of course I can.
Okay.
It's in my blood.
Okay.
It's in my DNA.
So Lenny, we're going to take a break, and we will return. And to my viewers, we are listening to DJ Lenny Fontana. Okay. And stay tuned. We'll be right back. We got some fun people in the house tonight.
This is our house.
My name is Tyrone Lowe, host of The Legends, and I have Lenny Fontana. Hey, Lenny.
Hey, Tyrone, how are you, bro?
So now we're going to get into the most important part of the segment of the show, production. I'm on your mailing list, man, and Karmic Records is just sending me crazy records. Every week I'm getting something from you guys. But besides that, how did you actually get into production?
Oh my God. I watched all my friends like David Morales and them start to not only, DJ anymore, they were starting to do editing, and they were starting to go and remix. Like I remember seeing the first mixes he did, like Imagination Extinctual, blow up for him. And I said, man, he's getting to do that. And Robert Cavillas and David Cole, and they were all blowing up. And it
Right.
wasn't about blowing up. It was just about, I wanted to hear my record on a dance floor. It was just like, what a great feeling that would have ever been to just, I'll make a record. I wasn't thinking about radio, none of that. Just, I want to make a record that Timmy Regisford, Tony Humphries, Frankie Knuckles, Kenny Carpenter, all of them would play. That was it. I wanted
Right.
just something that everybody could play, because seeing your name on wax was like winning a Grammy. It's like, wow,
Okay.
my name's on it. I used to see mixed by Francois K, Kevorkian, and, all these names. And a friend of mine, we went to a music store. He made me go with him to Rogue Music in Manhattan in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And we spoke to the guy, and he said, listen, let me show you some stuff. And then he showed us some keyboards and stuff. And next thing you knew, I was classically trained. I didn't know about the electronic stuff, but this was all new. MIDI. It's called Musical Instrument Digital Interface. So I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. And he's telling me, yeah, you could do this. And I'm like, really? And I started, tinkering around with the keyboard. And he went and bought it because I didn't have the money at that time. And I bought his drum machine.
Okay.
Bought a drum machine from him. And then I started working at my apartment at that time. And that was it.
Mm-hmm.
The rest is history.
So, Lenny, let's talk about how you landed Karmic Records.
Hard Power?
Yep. How did you actually start that? And,
My God.
because right now, it's a force. It's really a force. I play a lot of your stuff on LWR, because it's different than actually in the UK. In the UK is different. I can play a lot of things that are really more, I would say, more passive there. Then I can actually, my style in the United States would be a little bit different because it's a little bit more contemporary. But you have a very unique style of production because it's like integrated between both tech, disco, and the current type of house that's out right now.
Well, let me repeat something somebody just said to me, which is the best.
Okay.
You all know DJ Marley Marl, right?
Of course.
No, he's a
Yeah.
legend, BLS and Kiss for many years,
Mm-hmm.
right? So he said to a friend of ours, he says, yo, call Lenny, man. He does that disco joints. So I went, if that's really cool because I never saw myself as a disco producer. I saw myself as a soulful house producer. So 2012, end of 2012, Karmic Power. You asked, how did it begin? Manuel, my assistant, and we worked with another company and I was managed with them. And I became really close friends with him and we were working for a lot of years together. And him and I were running that company. So we both left, took a moment off, and then we sat down and said, let's start a record label. It took me a little while to come with the name. And I'm a big person that believes, I shouldn't say big, but I'm a big believer, I should say, in karma. What goes around comes around. And I always wanted to put good things out there and with the hopes that it would return tenfold to me or whatever, however that works. So I ran the names by some friends of mine who are astrologers and psychics. And I said, what do you think of Karmic Power? And they said to me, it's a very high, strong name. And I went with it. And I'm so glad I did because we haven't stopped. The label was designed around a time when progressive and electro music was still, and EDM was still so strong. And it was also an outlet for me to be able to release my sound. At that time, there was really not a lot of record labels to go to. Strictly Rhythm wasn't around anymore. Nervous was kind of quiet. He was in, half out. The UK labels that I used to work with were no longer existent. So there was not many people to knock on doors. So we said, okay, let's create a label. And Manuel said at the same time, I want to be able to bring in other artists. We'll sign and we'll develop and we'll work. And can you A&R as well? And I said, sure. And so that's officially 2013, we were off the ground running. And my first single was with the producer Kiva, artist Kiva the Diva, and Dwayne Sardin, and we got the first release with him, and it just didn't stop from there. It was a lot of trial and error. I also was coming off of the vinyl industry, and now having to be retrained to learn how to work in the digital spectrum, and in every way. Those who remember vinyl records, understand the old dinosaur system. When you step into the digital world and the social media side of the world, not having to ever do both, what a major change it is from what
Most definitely. Because I was a member of Shaw Record Pool for a very long time. God bless the dead Bobby Davis. And
will die.
we actually, when we picked up vinyl, man, we had to actually, we had to do our feedback sheets. We had to report to the stations every week. And we have to give them our top 25s, man. And it's not like it was actually handed down to us like it is now in the digital world, but we actually worked manually to get our stuff back in those days, you know?
Big time.
You know.
You also were wanting a record, like, you know, if there was certain records you wanted, not everybody had them.
That's true.
And you had to go hear a DJ. Certain DJs had certain records, only they had them.
Right.
Crazy.
Well, if I didn't have it, you know, back in the day, if I didn't have it, man, I had it on cassette. I'd take it straight down to Sunshine Sound, man, and get a platter made.
That's right. If you had the cassette, if you had a clean
right.
cassette.
Yeah,
but
you know,
a lot of records floating around that a lot of guys didn't.
Oh yeah, most definitely. A lot of underground stuff, you know. I remember hearing stuff like underground bass lines like Boy Jarvis, you know, stuff like that. And I'd be like, wow. But we're going to talk about...
May he rest in peace. What a crazy
Yes, very much. I also did a show on him as well, you know. So let's talk about, how did you end up with LWR? Because I played LWR for 4 years, and I remember that you were added to the roster and you was actually promoting your music, you know, and it was very cool because I'd be like, wow, you know. And then I got with Comic and got on the mailing list, and I'm getting everything, and I'm grateful, you know. And that's the reason why I really got you on this show, man, because you have a lot. You're very informative to a lot of guys out there right now. So the guys that's actually getting into the craft of DJing right now, what can you actually say to them, you know, to actually, you know, give them some type of encouragement about the craft itself?
Well, with the pandemic going on?
Well, actually, the craft itself.
Well, the craft itself.
Because without the pandemic, I mean, just the actual craft itself, you know.
Okay, so in a sense, I'll give you my experience.
Okay.
When I was first starting out, you went to go hear DJs to understand what programming was all about.
Right.
Because the mixing, yes, is the technical end of it. But if you don't program well and understand how to work a night, this is where it gets difficult, because to be able, what I call paint by numbers, the music right now sounds to me, a lot of times, a lot of releases sound mundane.
Right.
Sound very similar, and you're getting too much of it. So first thing you have to do is, when you sit down and listen to records, if you're going on Beatport, Track Source, Spotify, you got to believe in what you're hearing to what you're going to be playing to your audience.
Right.
If you don't believe in it, don't play it, because you're going to be sorry later. People are going to judge you on how the music you play.
Right.
The thing is, with me, because I've been around so many different audiences and so many years, I've been able to become like a Pied Piper. I can walk in a room and look at a crowd and know exactly without even touching a record. You just know. You know that feeling. You walk into a room and you just know what's going to work. Or you know, if you're not, let's say you're working to get yourself in a mix show situation on a radio station.
Right.
What the station's playing. Educate yourself. You know, also originate yourself too. Be an originator. Try to blend in what's happening there into what you're doing if you want to be part of that situation. Because you got to also create a brand now. In order to be successful, you must have a brand. So the Lenny Fontana brand is what he is. The Current Power brand is Tyrone's brand. You know what? You know when you're going to go hear Louis Vega, you know what his brand is about. You know what it sounds about.
Exactly.
You know what David Morales' brand is about. You know with Ray Vasquez in Brooklyn and Coney Island, what he's going to do. You know, they have a sound that they stick with, that they know is proven. It works. Their people love it. The other aspect is know your craft, know your equipment, Know what you're dealing with. Educate yourself. If you don't know, ask questions. Don't be afraid.
Okay. Okay.
I tell
So Lenny, we're going to have to wrap this up because it's over, but I'm very honored to have you on my show.
Thank you.
I wish we had time enough to even talk about, because there's a whole lot to talk about. I know you got a lot to talk about, but I am really flattered to have you on my show. And quickly, any shout outs to anyone?
Yes. Thank you to everyone that supports what we do. And please keep tuning into True House Stories, 2:00 New York City time on Facebook Live. We have so much great talent coming through telling their stories. Because right now we need to stick together. This is a tough time.
Most definitely.
Share the love, share the music, stay positive, put your mask on, be vigilant, and be smarter than what's coming out of Washington. That's all I can say.
Okay. Thank you, Lenny. Thank you so much for being on my show. And this is another T. Lowe Video Productions, and we're talking to Lenny Fontana. And I hope that you guys got a lot out of him. And with this, stay tuned for another T. Lowe Video Production. Thank you.
This is our house.
My assignment, my calling is to inspire, uplift.
You have to make sure your people are partying.
All I want to do is just bring joy to the dance floor and watch people dance.
T. Lowe, T. Lowe, T. Lowe.